Hey everyone, welcome back to What Next? Happy New Year's Eve on this one. This is going to be my New Year's special. We'll go ahead and finish the year strong, I guess, right before we hop into the new year. Hopefully we're bringing in new movies. Obviously, got a lot of new movies, a lot of great movies coming out for 2026. Can't wait to watch those and kind of go into the same thing on What Next for these guys. So, thank you for watching. But this week we're going to go with that Guy Ritchie classic, The Gentleman. Now, if you haven't seen The Gentleman, again, I suggest watching this one. It's been popping up all over. I think it's on Netflix, Amazon. I think it's everywhere now, or if you can even rent it if you need to. Now, if you haven't seen any Guy Ritchie films, do yourself a favor and watch his movies. These are great. Great plot, every single one of them. They always end with you kind of wanting more. So, same thing with this one. Great cast of characters. The story is fantastic. It'll leave you technically wanting more. So, for those of you who have seen it, let's jump into what next. So obviously the big question at the end, we'll start with Mickey, played with Matthew McConaughey, is what happens to Mickey, right? Obviously at the end, we're assuming the toddlers come and save him from, the Russian gangsters that are happening. So now it's what happens to Mickey. He went through this, this whole issue with his business being turned upside down. Now he gets a hold of it, figures out who was behind it all. Gets rid of everybody essentially, and now where does he go from here? Now that he's kind of bested all his enemies, so he's keeping his business. I'm just curious moving forward. Obviously, he's kind of like a gentleman gangster, so I was just wondering, does he kind of still go forward with marijuana becoming legal and what it is? Obviously, his business is going to be booming. He's probably a billionaire if he kept it by now. But as I said, he needed a clean face for his business because his reputation isn't the best. Because everybody knows he's an underground weed dealer. They just know he's the biggest one, but because weed isn't technically legal yet, he just couldn't make that money like that. So I bet you see him running. He probably has like a huge chain of dispensaries by now. Like I said, probably made more money than he thought it was going to. But I'm guessing you see some new kind of bad guy pop up wanting a piece of his pie. Maybe he's thinking of retiring again. Now that his business is better than ever, he wants to start handing the reins off. Maybe he tries to give more responsibility to Raymond because Raymond's kind of his right-hand guy. Or maybe he brings someone else in to kind of take things over. But definitely I see some sort of bad guy coming his way to kind of challenge everything of what he's built. So, but yeah. That was my main thing, is what happens with Mickey and his character. Obviously, then his wife is a big influence in his life. So it's maybe they go off somewhere. Pick up with him, and he's finally kind of semi-retired. Finally got some kids. He wanted to settle down and have some kids with her. But she's a badass herself. So I'm curious how their dynamic plays off going into probably some new sort of villain that pops up their way to challenge his empire. And then I would think Raymond. Raymond, obviously, he's a great character, proven to be his right-hand guy. Going forward, same thing with him. Like I would just be really curious what they do with his character, because he kind of just hovered with Mickey the whole time. So as Mickey rises, he rises. So I'm just curious. Maybe he gives Raymond a little bigger piece of of the pie, give him more responsibility. Maybe Raymond steps up and he's the main guy this time. Obviously he has that fight in him. Clearly that scene when he pulls out the machine, like he's ready for anything. This guy, like that's what you gotta love about Raymond. Like he's a Swiss Army knife. Like he's got tools for everything. So maybe we see Raymond kind of take over, and Mickey's just kind of CEO, but Raymond's actually running things. Like maybe we see something like that with their dynamic, and someone comes in to challenge the two of them, because at the end of the movie, he kind of got rid of all of his enemies for the most part, except for one major one, which we'll talk about now, Matthew. So you see Matthew Berger. So the last time we see Matthew, it's because him and Mickey got into it at the fish warehouse. So Mickey gives him makes him go into the freezer, transfer over this money, and he wanted his pound of flesh for messing not only with his business but with his family, meaning his wife. So I'm curious as to what happens with Matthew. Does he transfer the money? Does he cut off a piece of, does he give him a pound of flesh? Like, I want to see it picked up to where he's suffering with the with the aftermath of everything, because now he's probably humiliated. He's a billionaire, this guy. So probably everybody around him knows that Mickey's humiliated him, made him cut off a pound. Like, who knows? Maybe he had to cut off a finger or something. Like, I think it's a situation where everybody knows what happened, and he's just humiliated. So maybe he's the new bad guy. Maybe he just doubles down and is like, I'm going to find these people to help me go after Mickey and Raymond because they just humiliated me. Not only did they take hundreds of millions of dollars from me, they made me cut off a pound of flesh. Or maybe Bunny. You guys remember Bunny? Maybe Bunny took it from him. Like, who knows? Like, it's probably something strange to where he probably lost something that's pretty predominant. I'm going to go with maybe a hand, but, I don't know how much a hand actually weighs when you cut it off. So, but I still think the damage is going to be to where it's very, very traumatic. And obviously people are like, they want to see it, but he's just like, like he keeps to himself. And he kind of is a recluse, but he definitely wants his revenge on Mickey for all of this. And then, of course, the coach, played by Colin Farrell, the coach could honestly be a spinoff. Like, I think his character was fantastic in the movie to where, like, we want to see more of what the coach is and what he does. Like, obviously, he trains these kids to be fighters, but, as he says, he does some gangster things too. And when gangster things pop up, him and his group of athletes, which they call the toddlers, they don't play and they will go in and get things done. So I think they could have literally their own movie or series. The coach or the toddlers, one of those guys were fantastic. So I'm curious too what happens with that. I think whatever happens with Mickey and Raymond, they go back to the coach. They know the coach. They know he can get him out of a jam. I think we see the coach and the toddlers again. They come in and they they do what they do. Like I really think that would have been a good move for them. But again, Guy Ritchie, if you're out there listening, obviously, I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you that we could use a spin-off movie of just the coach and the toddlers. I think that would have been fantastic. Because the toddlers, there's 4 or 5 of them, and they come in and they, clearly they know how to fight. They know what they're doing. They're boxers or MMA guys. Like it's a mixed bag, but Colin Farrell being, their head figure, or even we see, he's got some new toddlers coming in and, or they've grown even massive. Like, he's got a bigger group of athletes to work with and, they get in some gangster stuff. But yeah, like I said, just with all that, I think you have perfect makings of a sequel. Who am I missing? Raymond. Not Raymond. I'm sorry, we're missing, why am I forgetting his name? Fletcher. Fletcher right here, played by Hugh Grant. So Fletcher, the whole guy that starts this whole process because he wants to, do a story. So Fletcher, obviously we need to see what happens with Fletcher, which at the end we see Raymond essentially kidnapping him and keeping him in that cab. So it's, where does he go with Fletcher? Because Fletcher obviously thought he had one up on them. He figured, since I know what you guys are doing, I know what Dry Eye was doing, I know what, I know what all the bad guys were doing to kind of mess with his, and he wanted his money. But now he's not getting his money, so he's trying to sell off this story or this idea for a movie about what happened. So I'm curious to see if they let Fletcher live, and if they do, what is he doing now? Like, I doubt he's still a journalist. I'm just curious. Maybe he goes back and... So yeah, sorry, blank thought there. But yeah, I think with Raymond causing so much havoc, obviously all the havoc him and Matthew, did ripples into going into the future. So, but again, I'm curious what they do with Raymond, how he proceeds, if he's even still around. They could have said Raymond had an accident, and then that's just that, he's gone. So let me know what you guys think. Once again, Happy New Year. Looking forward to a new year full of new movies we can go ahead and go through. But, of course, I'll throw in some old ones for you guys, too. Thanks for watching. See you next time.